The warning sirens had been screaming for 6 hours straight. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Persistence, her hands gripping the console so hard her knuckles had turned white. The ship was dying. She could feel it in the way the floor shook beneath her feet. She could hear it in the groaning metal all around her. The main drive had failed completely, and now they were drifting through space like a leaf in a storm. Behind her, 2,000 colonists slept in cryogenic pods, dreaming of a new home on a planet called Terra Nova. They had left Earth 18 months ago. They would never reach their destination. "How bad is it?" asked without turning around. Chief Engineer wiped grease from his face and shook his head. The big man looked exhausted. He had been working on the engines for the past 12 hours without rest. "The drive core is cracked," he said. "I cannot fix it, not with what we have on board." "Can we send a distress signal?" "Already did. The nearest ship is 40 days away. We have maybe 18 hours of life support left." Closed her eyes. 18 hours. That was not enough time. The colonists would die in their sleep, never knowing what happened. Her crew would die awake, watching the oxygen levels drop to zero. It was a terrible way to go. Medical officer walked onto the bridge. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but right now those eyes were filled with fear. "Captain, I just checked the pods. If we lose power, they will start failing within hours. The colonists will die." "I know," said quietly. Security chief hand pointed at the main screen. "Captain, look at this." The screen showed a star map of their current location. They were in an empty sector, far from any colony or space station. But there was one dot on the map, a single planet orbiting a dim red star. "What is that?" asked. Pulled up the data. His face went pale as he read it. "That is Omega-12. The bridge went silent. Everyone knew about Omega-12. Every species in the galaxy knew about Omega-12. It was the most dangerous planet ever discovered. The Galactic Council had declared it forbidden 3,000 years ago, and since then, 17 different species had tried to colonize it. All 17 had failed. Every single colonist, explorer, and soldier who set foot on that world had died. The planet had crushing gravity, almost twice as strong as Earth. The atmosphere was poisonous. Electromagnetic storms destroyed all technology within hours of landing, and the creatures that lived there were evolved to hunt and kill anything that moved. "We cannot go there," whispered. "It is a death sentence." "Staying here is also a death sentence," replied. Stared at the green and brown swirls on the planet image. It looked almost peaceful from this distance, almost beautiful. She knew that beauty was a lie. That planet had swallowed entire fleets. It had killed millions. The bones of 17 civilizations were scattered across its surface. But it was also their only hope. "How far away is it?" she asked. "Close enough," said. "We can reach it with thrusters alone. But Captain, you cannot be serious. The Council has forbidden any ship from entering that system. They will." "The Council is not here," said, "and neither are their rules. All I see is a choice between certain death in space and possible death on that planet." She turned to face her crew. These were good people. She had served with them for years. They trusted her with their lives, and now she was about to ask them to do something that every other species in the galaxy considered suicide. "I will not order anyone to come with me," she said. "If you want to stay on the ship and wait for rescue, I understand. But I am taking the colonists down to that planet. I am going to try." Nobody moved, nobody spoke, then stepped forward. "My job is to protect these people," she said. "I cannot do that from a dead ship." Nodded slowly. "Someone has to keep the engines working, even bad engines." Took a deep breath. "And someone has to keep everyone alive after we land. I am coming too." Felt something warm spread through her chest. Pride, maybe, or hope. "Then let us get to work. We have 18 hours to prepare for landing." The next several hours were chaos. The crew worked without rest, preparing the ship for atmospheric entry. They reinforced the hull as best they could. They moved supplies into protected areas. They did everything possible to give themselves a chance. As they worked, the automated warning beacons around Omega-12 began to scream at them. The messages came in every language known to the galaxy, all saying the same thing: turn back. Do not approach. This planet means death. Ignored them all. When the Persistence began its descent, the entire ship shook like it was being torn apart. The heat shields glowed orange, then red, then white. Alarms screamed. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks. Somewhere in the lower decks, a fire broke out. Through the chaos, kept her hands on the controls. She could see the planet rushing up to meet them, a wall of green and brown and gray. The clouds were thick and dark, filled with lightning that flashed like angry eyes. "Brace for impact," she shouted. The Persistence hit the atmosphere of Omega-12 like a hammer hitting stone. The ship tumbled, rolled, and spun, was thrown from her seat, crashing into the wall. She tasted blood in her mouth. The world became a blur of fire and metal and screaming. Then suddenly there was ground. The ship slammed into the surface of Omega-12 with a sound like the end of the world. Trees exploded. Earth flew into the air. The Persistence carved a valley into the jungle floor, traveling half a kilometer before finally coming to rest. Then everything was quiet. Opened her eyes. She was lying on the ceiling, which had become the floor. Blood dripped from a cut on her forehead. Her whole body hurt, but she was alive. She was alive. Slowly, painfully, she pulled herself up. Around her, the bridge was destroyed. Consoles hung from broken wires. Glass covered everything. The main screen was dark and cracked. "Is anyone alive?" she called out. One by one, her crew responded. Was trapped under a fallen beam, but he was breathing. Had a broken arm. Was already on her feet, checking the others. "We made it," said, laughing weakly. "We actually made it." "We crashed," corrected him. "That is not the same as making it." She walked to what was left of the main viewport and looked outside. The jungle of Omega-12 stretched out before her, dark and ancient and utterly alien. Strange trees with black leaves reached toward a green sky. Mist rose from the ground like the breath of some sleeping giant. And somewhere in the distance, something howled. Across the galaxy, monitoring stations registered the crash and dismissed it as another suicide. The Galactic Council would log it as expected total loss number 847. They would add the Persistence to the long list of ships that had died trying to survive the unsurvivable. They did not send rescue ships. They did not send observers. They simply recorded the loss and moved on. They had no idea what humans were capable of. Turned away from the viewport and faced her crew. "Wake the colonists," she said. "We have work to do." The impossible had just begun. The first night on Omega-12 was the longest night of Park's life. The colonists woke up confused and scared. 47 of them never woke up at all. Their cryogenic pods had been destroyed in the crash, found them frozen and still, their faces peaceful, not knowing they had died. There was no time to mourn. The gravity pulled at everyone like invisible hands, making every step feel like walking through water. The air burned their lungs and made their eyes water. Some people collapsed. Others vomited. A few simply sat down and cried. "Keep moving," Security Chief Han shouted. "We need to get out of the ship." The Persistence was broken beyond repair. Fires burned in the lower decks. The hull was cracked in a dozen places. Strange gases were seeping in from outside. If they stayed inside, they would die. They set up camp in a clearing near the crash site. It was not much, just a few emergency tents and some salvaged supplies. The gravity made everything harder. Lifting a box felt like lifting a boulder. Walking felt like running a marathon. By the time the sun went down, everyone was exhausted. The sun went down, and the darkness came alive. Navigator was the first to see the eyes. They appeared in the tree line, glowing blue and green in the darkness. Dozens of them, then hundreds. The creatures watched the human camp without making a sound. "What are those?" someone whispered. Loaded her weapon, one of the few that still worked. Nothing good. The attack came without warning. The creatures exploded from the jungle like shadows given form. They were fast and deadly, with 6 legs and claws that could tear through metal. Their skin was dark and smooth, and their eyes glowed with cold hunger. The humans called them stalkers. 12 people died in the first 10 seconds. The stalkers moved too fast, killed too quickly. Screams filled the night. Blood splashed on the ground. It was chaos. Then did something that saved them all. She grabbed a torch and threw it at the nearest stalker. The creature screamed and pulled back. It was afraid of fire. "Fire," she shouted. "They are afraid of fire." The humans grabbed anything that could burn. They made torches from sticks and cloth. They created a ring of flame around the camp. The stalkers circled outside the light, hissing and growling, but they did not attack again. By morning, the ground was covered with bodies. Walked among the dead, her heart heavy. These were her people. She had promised to protect them, and she had failed. 17 species had come to Omega-12, and all 17 had died. Was she leading her people to the same fate? Appeared beside her, her broken arm wrapped in a makeshift sling. "We cannot survive like this," the doctor said. "The atmosphere is poisoning us slowly. The gravity is damaging our bodies, and those creatures will come back." "I know," said. "Every other species tried to change this planet to fit them," continued. "They brought technology and machines and weapons. When those failed, they had nothing left." "What are you saying?" Looked at her with tired but determined eyes. "We need to change ourselves to fit the planet." It was a crazy idea, but it was also the only idea they had. Over the next few weeks, the humans began to adapt. Biologist Shin led teams into the jungle to study the local plants and animals. She discovered that some plants could neutralize the atmospheric toxins. She found creatures that could be eaten, and others that would kill with a single bite. Worked day and night, creating medicines from local ingredients. She developed a drink that helped their lungs process the air. It tasted terrible and caused strange dreams, but it worked. People stopped coughing. People stopped collapsing. Structural engineer learned how to build shelters that could survive the electromagnetic storms. The key was to use natural materials, things that grew on the planet itself. Wood and stone and mud. Nothing electronic, nothing metal. The storms could not destroy what was already part of the world. The children adapted the fastest. Born on Earth but growing up on Omega-12, their bodies began to change. They grew shorter but stronger. Their bones became denser. Their lungs expanded to hold more air. Within a year, they could run and play while adults struggled to walk. Organized hunting parties. They learned how to track the creatures of Omega-12, how to kill them, how to eat them. The meat was strange and tough, but it kept them alive. Some of the smaller creatures could even be tamed. A boy named Lee caught a baby stalker and raised it like a pet. The creature followed him everywhere, protecting him like a loyal dog. "We can use them," realized. "If we raise them from birth, they bond with us. They can protect the camp." It was not easy. Many people died in those first months. They died from the atmosphere and the gravity and the storms. They died from stalker attacks and poisonous plants and accidents. Every day was a fight for survival. But every day, the humans got better at fighting. Worked harder than anyone. She helped build shelters. She helped gather food. She helped bury the dead. She learned the names of every survivor and the faces of every person they had lost. She carried their memory with her like a weight on her shoulders. One night, about 6 months after the crash, found her sitting alone on a hill overlooking the camp. The green sky was filled with strange stars, none of them familiar. The mist rose from the jungle below like smoke from a dying fire. You should sleep, said, sitting beside her. I will sleep when everyone is safe. That might be never. Smiled, but it was a sad smile. Maybe, but we are still here, are we not? 6 months on a planet that kills everyone. 17 species failed. We are still here. Nodded. The galactic records say the longest any species survived on Omega-12 was 14 months. That was and they had an army of soldiers and the best technology in the galaxy. We have no army, we have no technology. We have something better. Looked at the camp below, where lights flickered in the darkness and children laughed despite everything. We have the ability to change, to adapt, to survive using nothing but our hands and our minds. Below them, the camp was growing. New shelters were being built every week. Gardens were being planted with local crops. A simple water system was being constructed. It was not a colony yet, not really, but it was a beginning. The Galactic Council said no, one survives Omega-12, said quietly. The Galactic Council never met humans, replied. In the distance, a stalker howled, but this time the sound did not bring fear. Instead, several tamed stalkers in the camp howled back, answering the call. The wild creature went silent, confused by the response. Stood up and looked at her people. They were tired and hurt and scared, but they were alive, and tomorrow they would wake up and keep fighting. That was what humans did. Come on, she said too, we have work to do. They walked back down the hill together, two small figures against the vast darkness of an alien world. Above them, the green sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn. Another day on Omega-12 was beginning. Another day of impossible survival. But the humans did not care about impossible. They only cared about tomorrow. High Admiral had 4 eyes, and all 4 of them were wide with shock. He sat in the command chair of his warship, the eternal silence, staring at the images on his screen. The ship had been monitoring Omega-12 for the past 3 years, as all ships did when passing through this sector. It was a duty, a way of honoring the 80,000 soldiers who had died on that cursed planet centuries ago. But what he was seeing now made no sense. This is impossible, he hissed, his blue scales rippling with agitation. Run the scans again. His science officer, a young female named, checked her instruments. The scans are accurate, High Admiral. The human settlement has grown by 40% since our last observation. Population is now over 2,500. They have multiple sites, organized agriculture, and what appears to be manufacturing capability. Manufacturing, with what technology? No technology, sir. At least, nothing electronic. They are using fire and simple tools, primitive methods that our ancestors abandoned 10,000 years ago. Leaned forward, his 4 eyes narrowing. Show me closer images. The screen zoomed in on the human settlement, saw rows of simple buildings made from stone and wood. He saw fields where strange crops grew in neat lines. He saw humans walking around, working, talking, laughing. Children ran between the buildings, chasing what looked like small domesticated stalkers. Children, there were children. They are breeding, said, his voice barely a whisper. They are actually breeding on Omega-12. Yes, sir. Our observations show at least 200 children born since the crash. The younger generation appears to be adapting to the planet's conditions at an accelerated rate. Remembered the stories his grandfather had told him. The expedition to Omega-12 had been the greatest military operation in their history. They had brought warships and weapons and the finest soldiers in the galaxy. They had built fortresses of steel and stone. They had fought the creatures of Omega-12 with all their might. And they had lost, every single one of them. The planet had crushed their fortresses. The storms had destroyed their technology. The creatures had hunted them in the darkness. Within a year, 80,000 warriors were dead. Their bones still lay scattered across Omega-12, a monument to failure. Now a group of soft, fragile humans was living there like it was nothing. How, demanded, how are they surviving what killed us? Hesitated before answering. They are not fighting the planet, High Admiral, they are joining it. She pulled up biological scans of the human colonists. The first generation shows signs of significant physical stress, compressed spines, enlarged hearts, damaged lungs, but they have developed medicines from local plants that counter the atmospheric toxins. They have learned which creatures can be eaten and which can be tamed. The screen changed to show the younger humans. The second generation is different. Their bodies are changing to match the planet. Shorter, denser bones, larger lung capacity, darker skin to protect against radiation. They are becoming native to Omega-12. In just 3 years, humans have a remarkable adaptation rate, sir. Their genetic flexibility is unlike anything we have recorded in other species. Sat back in his chair, his mind racing. They had tried to conquer Omega-12 with strength and technology. They had treated it as an enemy to be defeated. The humans were treating it as a home to be lived in. It was such a simple difference, and yet it changed everything. "We must report this to the Galactic Council," said. "Yes," agreed slowly, "we must." But something troubled him, something he could not quite name. The Galactic Council had declared Omega-12 forbidden for 3,000 years. 17 species had died trying to colonize it. The planet had become a symbol, a warning to all civilizations that some challenges could not be overcome. What would happen when the galaxy learned that humans had overcome it anyway? Far below, on the surface of Omega-12, Captain Park had no idea she was being watched. She stood on her favorite hill, the one she had claimed as her thinking spot 3 years ago. The settlement had grown so much since then. What had once been a crash site and a few emergency tents was now a real community. They had named it New Seoul, after the great city on Earth. New Seoul had stone buildings with thatched roofs. It had a central square where people gathered to trade and talk. It had a hospital where trained new doctors. It had a school where children learned to read and write and survive. Most importantly, it had hope. "Something is watching us," said, joining her on the hill. His hair had turned gray over the years and the gravity had made him shorter, but his eyes were still sharp, his mind still quick. "I know," replied. "I have felt it for weeks, something in the sky. Probably a Galactic Council ship. They must have noticed we are still alive." "Are you worried?" "Thought about it. A little. The Council does not like it when people break their rules, and we are living on a planet they declared forbidden." Looked down at the settlement. Her daughter, Park, was walking through the streets with a group of friends, had been born on Omega-12, the first child of the colony. She was 15 now, short and strong and perfectly adapted to this world. She had never known Earth. She had never known any gravity but this one. "Let them watch," said. "Let them see what we have built. And if they try to remove us, then we will show them why that is a bad idea." She was not being arrogant. She was being practical. In 3 years, the humans had learned everything about Omega-12. They knew its dangers and its secrets. They knew how to survive its storms and hunt its creatures. They had an entire pack of tamed stalkers that obeyed their commands. Any army that tried to invade New Seoul would face not just humans, but the planet itself. That night called a meeting of the colony leaders. They gathered in the meeting hall, a large stone building in the center of town. Was there, along with, and these were the people who had kept the colony alive. "We are being watched from orbit," announced, "probably by thee or the Galactic Council." "What do we do?" asked. "Nothing for now. We keep building, keep growing, keep surviving. We show them that we belong here." Crossed her arms, "And if they attack?" "They will not attack. Not yet. They will want to understand us first. They will want to know how we survived what killed everyone else." Nodded slowly. She is right, we are a mystery to them. They will study us before they act. Then let us give them something to study, said with a grim smile. Let us show them what humans can do. Over the next few months, the colony worked harder than ever. They expanded their fields and built new houses. They trained more stalkers and explored more territory. They had children and raised them strong. And all the while, the ship watched from above, sending reports back to the Galactic Council. The reports caused confusion, then disbelief, then fear. Because if humans could survive Omega-12, what else could they survive? What other impossible challenges could they overcome? What did it mean for a galaxy that had always believed some things could not be done? The humans did not know it yet, but they were about to change everything. High Admiral sent his final report and then ordered his ship to leave orbit. He had seen enough. He had seen the impossible become possible. As the eternal silence jumped to faster-than-light speed, looked back at the green planet one last time. They are just primitives, he told himself, simple creatures with simple tools. But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. The humans were something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. And they were just getting started. The shuttle descended through the green clouds of Omega-12, and Ambassador felt her heart's beating faster. She had 3 hearts, like all members of the collective. She also had pale purple skin, long fingers, and eyes that could see in complete darkness. Her species was known throughout the galaxy for their intelligence and their diplomacy. When the Galactic Council needed someone to make contact with a new civilization, they sent the. But this was not a normal first contact mission. Approaching the human settlement, the pilot announced. Should I activate defensive shields? No, said, we come in peace, we should look like it. The shuttle broke through the clouds and got her first real look at Omega-12. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Dark forests stretched to the horizon, broken only by mountains and rivers. The sky was green and heavy with moisture. Lightning flickered in the distance, part of the endless electromagnetic storms that made this planet so deadly. And there, in a valley between 2 hills, was the human settlement. Had studied the observation reports. She had seen the images from orbit, but nothing had prepared her for the reality. The settlement was huge, far larger than she had expected. Stone buildings with thatched roofs spread across the valley floor. Fields of strange crops grew in neat rows. Smoke rose from chimneys. People walked through the streets. It looked like a city, a real living city. By the stars, whispered one of her aides, they actually built something here. The shuttle landed in an open area near the edge of the settlement, took a deep breath and stepped outside. The gravity hit her immediately. It was like someone had placed a heavy weight on her shoulders. Her legs trembled. Her lungs struggled to pull in the thick, strange air. Within seconds, she was gasping. A young human woman approached them, walking easily despite the crushing gravity. She was short and compact, with dark hair and skin that had adapted to the harsh radiation. Her eyes were calm and curious. "Welcome to New Seoul," she said in accented galactic standard. "I am Park. We have been expecting you." Tried to respond, but she could barely breathe. Her aides were even worse off. One of them collapsed to his knees, choking on the atmosphere. Nodded as if she understood. "The air and gravity take time to adjust to. Please come inside. We have medicine that will help." She led them into a large stone building. Inside, the air was cleaner, filtered through some kind of plant-based system. A human with gray hair and kind eyes approached them with cups of dark liquid. "Drink this," she said. "It will help your lungs process the atmosphere. I am doctor." Drank. The liquid tasted terrible, bitter, and earthy, but within minutes she could breathe more easily. Her aides recovered slowly, looking around in amazement. Hal finally managed to ask, "How did you create this?" "We learned," said simply. "We studied the planet, found what we needed, and adapted. It took time and many deaths, but we learned." But your technology. We have no technology, nothing electronic anyway. The storms destroy it within hours, so we went back to basics, fire and stone and medicine from plants, the same way our ancestors survived on Earth before they invented machines. Could not believe what she was hearing. Her species, had tried to colonize Omega-12 800 years ago. They had brought the most advanced technology in the galaxy. They had failed within months. These humans had survived with sticks and rocks. Over the next several days, the delegation toured New Seoul. They saw the stone houses where families lived. They saw the hospital where trained new doctors. They saw the school where children learned to read and write. They saw the farms where strange crops grew. They saw the stalkers. The first time a tamed stalker walked past them, nearly fainted. She knew what those creatures were capable of. She had seen the records of how many people they had killed. But here was a six-legged death machine, walking calmly beside a human child like it was a pet. How? She asked again. It seemed to be the only word she could say anymore. Park smiled. We raise them from birth. When they are young, they bond with us. They become family. Family with predators. Everything on this planet is a predator. If we could not make friends with some of them, we would have died long ago. On the third day, finally met the leader of the colony. Elder Park was in her 60s now, her hair white and her body bent from years of heavy gravity, but her eyes were sharp and her voice was strong. Ambassador said, greeting her warmly, I am glad you came. We have waited a long time for this meeting. They sat in simple home, drinking the bitter medicine and talking. Asked the question that had been burning in her mind since she arrived. How did you survive? 17 species failed on this planet. Millions died. How did you succeed? Was quiet for a moment. Do you know the difference between us and those who failed? Technology. They had more technology than you. Exactly, and that was their problem. Looked out the window at the settlement she had built. They came here with machines and weapons and the belief that they could bend this planet to their will. When Omega-12 broke their tools, they had nothing left. And you? Humans spent most of our existence without technology. We remember how to make fire with sticks. We remember how to hunt with spears. We remember how to build shelter with our hands. When our machines failed, we went back to what we knew. She turned to face directly. The other species tried to conquer Omega-12. We just moved in. We became part of it. We let it change us, and in return, it let us live. Understood now. It was so simple, so obvious. But it was also something her species, and every other species in the galaxy, had forgotten long ago. They had become so dependent on technology that they could not survive without it. Humans could. That night sent a report to the Galactic Council. She described everything she had seen. The settlement, the medicine, the tamed predators, the children growing up as native to Omega-12 as any creature born there. The report caused an immediate crisis. Some council members demanded the humans be evacuated. Omega-12 was forbidden, they argued. The laws must be enforced. Others wanted the planet quarantined. The humans studied from a distance. They demanded the humans be removed entirely. The planet was sacred to them, a grave for their ancestors. But the humans were not consulted. No one asked them what they wanted. No one cared about their opinion. That was about to change. On the night before the delegation was scheduled to leave, found standing alone on a hill overlooking New Seoul. The alien was struggling to breathe in the open air, but she seemed lost in thought. You are worried, said. Yes, the council. They may not let you stay here. Nodded slowly. I know, but this is our home now. We were born here, raised here, built our lives here. Where else would we go? Back to Earth, or another colony world. Laughed softly. I cannot survive on Earth, Ambassador. The gravity is too weak. The air is too thin. My body has changed too much. Omega-12 is the only place in the universe where I belong. Looked at the young woman, really looked at her. Was not fully human anymore, not in the Earth sense. She was something new, something that had never existed before. A human evolved for the harshest world in the galaxy. "What will you do if the Council sends ships to remove you?" asked. Smile faded. "We will not leave. This is our home. We will fight for it if we have to. Against the combined forces of the Galactic Council. Against anyone who tries to take away what we have built." There was no anger in her voice, no pride, just simple, quiet determination. Had met warriors from a dozen species, soldiers who boasted of their strength and power. None of them had scared her the way this small, calm human woman did. "I will tell the Council what you have said," promised. "I will tell them everything." "Thank you, Ambassador." As the shuttle lifted off the next morning, took one last look at New Sol. The humans were already back to work, building and farming and living. They did not watch the sky. They did not worry about what the galaxy would decide. They just kept surviving. And that, realized, was the most terrifying thing of all. The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room in the known universe. It floated in orbit around a dead star, a massive sphere where representatives from 300 species gathered to decide the fate of civilizations. Holographic displays showed faces of every shape and color. Voices spoke in thousands of languages, all translated instantly by ancient machines. Today they were all talking about one thing: the humans of Omega-12. Ambassador stood before the assembly, her purple skin pale with exhaustion. She had been testifying for hours, describing everything she had seen on that forbidden world. The questions had been endless. The arguments had been fierce. "These primitives must be removed," thundered the representative, High Admiral. He was older now, his blue scales faded with age, but his 4 eyes still burned with anger. "Omega-12 is sacred ground. 80,000 of our warriors died there." "And yet humans live there now," replied calmly. "They have been there for 5 years. They have built homes and farms and families. You cannot simply remove them like unwanted furniture." "We can and we will. I have a fleet ready to enforce the Council's laws." "And what will you do when you land?" asked. "The humans have tamed the stalkers. They have learned to use the planet itself as a weapon. They know every cave, every river, every dangerous creature. Your soldiers would die by the thousands." The chamber erupted in argument. Species that had not spoken to each other in centuries were suddenly shouting. The demanded blood. The counseled patience. Others suggested everything from orbital bombardment to peaceful negotiation. In the end, they voted to send a fleet, not to attack but to enforce an evacuation order. The humans would be relocated to a safe colony world. Omega-12 would be sealed forever. Far below the Council station, in the depth of space, a message was sent to New Sol. Elder Park received the news with a calm expression. She was 70 years old now, her body worn from decades of heavy gravity. But her mind was still sharp, and her spirit was still unbroken. "They are sending a fleet to remove us," she told the colony leaders. "They say we have no right to live here." Security Chief Han, now gray-haired but still strong, slammed her fist on the table. "Then we fight." "Can we win?" asked who had become the colony's chief hunter. Against a Galactic Council fleet, probably not. Looked around at the faces of her friends. These were the people who had survived the crash with her, the people who had built New Sol from nothing. But winning is not the only option. Over the next several months, the humans prepared, not for war but for something else entirely. Park led teams across the planet, making contact with creatures they had never approached before. The great beasts of Omega-12, monsters that could destroy entire buildings with one swipe of their claws, were offered food and friendship. Some attacked and had to be killed. Others accepted and joined the growing army of tamed creatures. Doctor worked on new medicines, stronger than anything they had made before. These could help even non-humans survive on Omega-12, at least for a short time. It was a gift, carefully prepared. Engineer supervised the construction of massive walls around New Sol, not to keep enemies out, but to show them how strong the humans had become. The walls were made from Omega-12's indestructible black stone, carved by hand over countless hours. An ambassador work began, sent messages to every ship that had ever observed them. She invited their scientists to visit. She offered to share everything the humans had learned about Omega-12. Some came secretly, unable to resist their curiosity. They walked through New Sol with wonder in their eyes. They saw the tamed stalkers and the adapted children and the medicines that could neutralize the toxic air. 3 of them decided to stay. "This is incredible," one scientist whispered too. "We lost everything trying to conquer this world. You have learned to live with it." "The universe has room for more than one way of doing things," replied. When the Council fleet finally arrived at Omega-12, they found something unexpected. Ships were already in orbit, but not in attack formation. They were trading vessels and research ships, filled with who had become allies of the humans. Human ambassadors were aboard, invited guests who had been spreading their message across the fleet. On the surface, New Sol was ready. The walls stood tall and strong. The tamed creatures of Omega-12 prowled the perimeter, their eyes watching the sky. Children played in the streets unafraid. High Admiral descended with the first landing party. He was old now, near the end of his life, but he had insisted on leading the mission personally. He wanted to see these impossible humans face to face. Park met him at the landing site. She was in her early 20s, the first true daughter of Omega-12. She stood straight and calm in the crushing gravity, breathing easily in the toxic air. A massive stalker sat beside her like a loyal dog. "Welcome to New Sol," she said. "We have been expecting you." Stared at her. This was the enemy he had come to remove. This small, peaceful young woman who looked more at home on this death world than he did on his own starship. "The Council has ordered your evacuation," he said. "I know. You must leave this planet." "We cannot. This is our home. Our bodies have changed to live here. We would die anywhere else." Looked around at the settlement behind her. He saw the walls and the fields and the houses. He saw the humans working and playing and living. He saw the scientists who had chosen to stay, working alongside their former enemies. He thought of his ancestors, the 80,000 who had died on this planet. They had fought and killed and conquered until there was nothing left. They had never thought to make peace with Omega-12. But the humans had. High Admiral said gently, "We are not your enemies, we never were. We just wanted to survive." "You broke the law. We rewrote it." Was silent for a long moment. He could give the order. His fleet could bombard the settlement from orbit. They could kill every human, every tamed creature, every trace of this impossible colony. But what would that accomplish? The humans had already proven that Omega-12 could be survived. They had already shown the galaxy that the impossible was possible. Killing them would not change that. And besides, was tired of death. "I need to speak with the Council," he said finally. The vote took 3 days. It was the most contentious decision in Council history. Species argued and threatened and bargained. Ancient alliances were broken and new ones formed. In the end, the result was closer than anyone expected. Omega-12 was redesignated from Forbidden Zone to Human Protectorate. The evacuation order was cancelled. The colonists were offered citizenship in the Galactic Council, the first new species admitted in 800 years. The warning beacons around Omega-12 went silent for the first time in 3,000 years. Elder heard the news in her small home, surrounded by the colony leaders who had become her family. She was dying, she knew. The years of heavy gravity had taken their toll, but she was not sad. "We did it," said, tears in his eyes. "We actually did it." "We always were going to," replied. "Humans do not obey the rules, we never have." Her granddaughter, Park, sat beside her. Was only 10 years old, third generation, more Omega-12 than Earth. She had never known any other home. She never would. "Grandmother," asked, "why do you think we survived when everyone else died?" Smiled and took her granddaughter's hand. "Because every other species looked at this planet and saw a death sentence. They saw something to be conquered or destroyed. But we looked at Omega-12 and saw a challenge, a problem to be solved, a home to be made." She looked out the window at New Seoul, at the streets filled with humans and aliens and creatures that had once been deadly enemies. The galaxy was changing, and they had changed it. "We do not obey the rules, we never have. When the universe tells us something is impossible, we find a way anyway. That is what makes us human." That night the celebration lasted until dawn. Humans and danced together in the streets. Children rode on tamed stalkers through the fields. Ambassador joined them, still struggling with the gravity but laughing anyway. And in the sky above New Seoul, ships from across the galaxy gathered in orbit, not to attack, not to evacuate, but to witness. The impossible had become real, the forbidden had become home. And the humans of Omega-12 had proven, once and for all, that there were no rules they could not break. Elder Park died 3 days later, peacefully in her sleep. Her last words were a message for her granddaughter. "Keep going, keep growing, keep surviving, and never, ever let anyone tell you what you cannot do." Park would live to be 140 years old, the longest-lived human in history. She would see New Seoul become a great city, a center of learning and trade for the entire sector. She would welcome visitors from 1,000 worlds and teach them the secret of human survival. And whenever anyone asked her how the humans had done it, how they had survived the unsurvivable, she would tell them the same thing her grandmother had told her. "We just refused to die. That was the human way. That would always be the human way. And the galaxy would never be the same."